How can Guernsey become the happiest country on earth? What a fantastic homework question for us, and just a great topic. Just following on from Mark's introduction, as he said, my name is Gavin Pier. I'm the president of the Policy and Resources Committee. Now, for those of you who are watching beyond these shores, those of you who are not domestic political followers, those of you who are visiting the island, I can probably best translate that title for you into a title that might mean something, because it doesn't mean something probably on its own. It is effectively the role of being chief minister, so in other words, the sort of the senior political figure in this island. And that's really why I'm here today, is to give you a bit of a political perspective on this great piece of homework that we've been set, rather than some of the practical steps that can be taken, which I know will feature very much in the rest of the day. So I'm going to set the tone, as Mark says, with a sort of the big political perspective. But before I do that, I think it's fair to say that many of you who do know me from my public persona will feel you know me from what you see in the press, or you hear on the radio, or the TV, or social media, or so on. And I just want to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about me and what shaped me, why I've sought public office, and what I want to do with public office. And I suppose by way of introduction, I would describe myself as being middle class. I have to admit, I probably finally have to admit that I am going to be middle-aged. I'm 50 at my next birthday. I think that probably qualifies me for middle age. Reluctant though I am to admit that, but I think my children tell me that must be the case. Or they say worse, actually, but never mind. University educated, professional background, and I think by any measure I would describe myself as being well off. So that's kind of my background. I suppose I've had many of the same stresses and strains that everybody has. Nothing particularly special about that. I mean, my parents separated when I was 7. I had a brother who was schizophrenic and unfortunately took his own life at 32. I've watched my father suffer a rather unpleasant death through heart failure. Nothing particularly unusual about that. You will all have your own experiences of family stresses and strains. On the upside, I've been fortunate enough to be married for 21 years to a very special partner. I have 3 fantastic, gorgeous, intelligent, bright children, again, much like many other people in the room. The third thing I would say about myself is I'm very goal-orientated, and what I've come to believe is that whatever goal you set, you can get there if that's what you set for yourself. And I've always worked hard to achieve the goals that I've set myself, but I've also been lucky as well. I've been in the right place at the right time, and that combination has enabled me to achieve the things that I've set out to achieve. So why have I given you that sort of little vignette of little bits and pieces about me? Well, I'm going to return to the questions of family and goals a little bit later, because I think that does feed into to where we are. But further by way of background, I stood for election for the first time in 2012, really because I wanted to give something back to the community, which I felt has been very good to me, has treated me very well, because I wanted to make a difference, because I believed that Guernsey is and was, at that time in 2012, a great place with some problems that needed addressing. But I was very, very focused on wanting to become the Treasury and Resources Minister, the Finance Minister during the last political term, and to address some of the public finance challenges we had. So in other words, a very clear but narrow goal. And I think that sort of brings me up to 2015. As I was thinking about whether to stand for election again, I was really trying to ask myself the question, why would I stand again? What was it that I was, what for? What is it that I would be looking to achieve if I was elected? And there were 2 things that happened to me in 2015. One was I had a minor personal health scare, which fortunately turned out to be just that. But also I had one of my children actually was also really quite ill, and in fact has gone on to be diagnosed with a endocrine condition, which is likely to be a lifelong condition, and it's now being treated. But the point about that, and the reason I tell you that story, is what was positive about that and what was timely about those experiences is it reminded me what we all know, is that actually the health and happiness of our families and our own health and happiness is far more important than our wealth, our job, our status, our assets, our income. And it sometimes is good to be reminded of that. But, and this is the point, when you look at the community level, the key performance indicators of success at the community level are typically financial. The success of the economy, GDP per head, real incomes, house prices, debt, deficit, all of those things. And I think the epiphany for me, my epiphany, was that there was no reason why the community's objectives as a collective, as a group, should be any different to the objectives that we have either as individuals or as families. And combined also with the realisation that politics in Guernsey has suffered with no real long-term planning and no planning process for prioritising policy and resources, that led me to my position in 2016, where I spoke at the Institute of Directors in February to set out what I saw as being a broader, a more ambitious goal, which was really about government's role in improving the health and happiness of the community for which it's responsible. And that became the central theme of my personal election campaign in April 2016 to be re-elected as a deputy and then subsequently to be elected as the President of Policy and Resources as the island's Chief Minister. Now, just as a little bit of an aside, of course, one of the things that we also all know is that when we go on holiday, there are very few of us who hop in the car and turn left. We all plan where we're going to go on holiday. And that realisation that actually in order to reach a destination, you need to plan to get there. And that's very much what government is seeking to do, with, as Mark said, the publication today of a document called Future Guernsey, which is short, and it contains a very simple 20-year vision, which I think is achievable, as it's one that I think many people already share. And I think most of you in this room will share that, and that's a point I'm going to come back to later, because that's precisely why you're here. And so this is the vision statement, that we will be among the happiest and healthiest places in the world where everyone has an equal opportunity to achieve their potential. We will be a safe and inclusive community which nurtures its unique heritage and environment and is underpinned by a successful and diverse and successful economy. Now, there will be many in this room, and Mark will be one of them, who will say, that's not ambitious enough. 20-year vision, what are you talking about? And also, why do you only want to be among? Why don't you want to be the? And I think all I would say to that is you have to recognise that this two-sentence statement of vision is the product of a political process in a consensus system of government where you need to carry people with you. So I acknowledge the comment, but I explain the background to it. But Future Guernsey cannot just be a government vision. It has to become a community vision and a collaboration. And I think it's only then will it outlive the changes in government if it becomes part of the community's DNA. And I think that's our real challenge. Yes, we of course need nimble and collaborative government which draws together the resources of the public, private and third sectors and breaks down those silos which of course exist between government, as they do, of course, in any organisation, and also between government and the non-government sectors in order to achieve this common objective, if this does become our common objective. And I think one of the things that I've talked to Mark about is this concept of the fourth sector also as well, the one that seeks to blend the pursuit of social and environmental aims with the use of business methods. And again, I think it's very encouraging this year that we're already starting to see some signs of that with the conversations which are taking place around impact investing, which interestingly are being led by the Chamber of Commerce, who have set up a working group to look at that. So I think we're seeing some interesting developments in that area. Just as a quick aside again, in terms of what I think this vision can also help us do, could those that are outside, who actually have come today from outside Guernsey, in other words, if you live outside Guernsey, can you stick up your hand? Okay, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if one of the phrases you'd associate with Guernsey is tax haven. Okay, most of you have still kept your hands up. And keep your hands up if that term tax haven has negative connotations for you. Okay, so basically, most of you come from outside Guernsey, think of Guernsey as a tax haven, and that's not a very positive thing. I'm paraphrasing. Now, of course, all of us who live in Guernsey, particularly those who've experienced the budget last week, will say, well, we're not living in a tax haven at all, because you keep taxing us. And that's a phrase that, of course, I often hear. But I think the point is the perception of us has been the case for many years. And however hard we seek to break it, it's a challenge. But I think delivering this vision will help change that perception, change the narrative for us about our role in the world, because we will start to be seen as a force for good in terms of what our objectives are. And again, the concept of developing, for example, specialisms around impact investing, turning our fund industry into having a specialist area which is a force for good in the world, I think is positive. So for me, that's one of the other objectives that I would like to come out of the delivery of this. Future Guernsey is also a 5-year programme of government which contains 4 themes. And the 4 themes we've identified are around our economy, our quality of life, our community, and our place in the world. But around those 4 themes, we have expressed clear actions, and those are expressed in unambiguous language and as a statement of intent. So each of them begin with "we will." So these are the things that we're going to do over the next 5 years. And I just want to draw out some of them which I think are of the most relevance and interest to this audience. So what we say is we will focus on the prevention of, early intervention in, and protection from negative health outcomes. We will encourage active lifestyles for the benefit of the community's health and mental well-being. We will foster integration in our community. We will promote community participation. We will ensure everyone in our community has the fullest opportunity to develop the knowledge and skills needed to pursue happy, healthy, and fulfilling lives, meeting the needs of our economy today and in the future. We will provide and encourage opportunities for continuous personal development to all in our community. So very clear statements of intent. Now, the next stage of this process is for the 6 principal committees that are responsible for policy development in Guernsey, assuming this plan is accepted on the 15th of November when it's debated, to take these statements of intent away and go and work out what that actually means in terms of policy development, policy making, prioritisation and resource allocation, so that we actually will be driving the direction of government on the back of those statements of intent with a view to achieving this objective. So, in the last 3 minutes and 35 seconds, which is flashing down before me, summing up, how can Guernsey become the happiest country on earth? 3 steps for me. First step, most importantly, is that as a community we have to have the collective will, the collective belief that we can, which comes back to being goal-driven. Now, I think those of us that do believe that we can will be evangelical in that, and none more so than Mark and Jock, of course, even more ambitious than me. And we have to face that there will be cynics and skeptics. When I spoke at the IOD in February, the comment was, "What dandelions has he been smoking?" But I think we are very close. I think we are very close to the tipping point, where actually the majority of the population, who, as from my own experience and from your own experiences, know that the key thing for them is the health and happiness of their own families. They will get this, and I think they will very much be on board with this. And I think that once we've reached that tipping point, we're well on the way. Second step is we need to plan to get there. and that's what Future Guernsey is all about. That's what the programme for government is all about, and that's what the community also need to be working with government and with each other to help achieve, setting those goals. And then third and finally, of course, is then delivering that plan. And that, of course, is the active stage. And I think that's where a lot of the practical things which you will be talking about in the rest of the day, of course, will be absolutely critical. So I very much look forward to working with you all to take Guernsey from being great today to being better tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed.